Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we are talking about a really important topic, not only because a new set is coming out, because it's also a new year, and we tend to set a lot of goals. We tend to work on new objectives in the year. So, this can be a greater time to really start addressing like really effective goal setting. Like, what does that look like? How do we set effective goals? How do we measure them? And kind of how does that play into our personal life as well as like the TCG world of kind of wanting to improve our game, become better players, and really shine in the areas that we really want to work on that we've identified that might be some growth edges for us. Um, there was a great conversation today on X. I was hearing about kind of this idea of effort versus outcome, and and a lot of the research in my field kind of indicates that you got to have some effort to have an outcome, but there is a point where if we're not strategic and we aren't setting really effective goals and finding ways to measure these things, and that effort can actually become detrimental to our growth and development. So sitting there and thinking about that dynamic, I really wanted to come today and kind of make this video just on the real basics of how do we set effective goals, right? We can talk maybe later in a different video about the specifics of like when does effort start to negatively impact us, but I think we really need to start with the foundational piece of what is goal setting, what makes it important, and why setting effective goals can make all the difference between succeeding and potentially failing. So kind of let's jump into that piece. So what is goal setting? Goal setting is just identifying an area that we want to work on, and I'm going to use what we call the SMART goal method. It kind of stands for some different areas we're going to address. And so the first one is when we set that goal, we really want to be strategic and be specific of what that goal is. I'll use if it's I want to walk around Disney and not be have to sit down multiple times. That could be a goal, right? And that that is a specific goal. Walk around Disney, in this time frame and not be able to sit down. In TCG world, maybe is I want to make better ink-based decisions. I want to be better in the mirror. My mirror matchups. I want to make better late game decision making. I want to master a specific color pairing. In put in that can be the basis of a great goal. I want to memorize the win conditions and working towards the win condition of the color pairing of my choice. Those are great specific goals. And what I mean specific is it can't be I want to be a better Lorcana player. Why that isn't a great goal? Because there's 1,000 things we can get better at, and TCGs are ever evolving. And so if we're not specific at setting the benchmark, we have nothing to measure it by, right? So being specific also gives us clarity of what we're working on, right? It gives us clarity to understand, okay, like here's where I'm putting my effort. And then once I've achieved that, I can create a new SMART goal and move from there. So the first step, creating a really specific goal. Next is making that goal measurable, right? Let's use the example of walking around Disney. Well, great opportunity to say Disney is X point, is so many miles around the whole park, right? So now I have my goal of like that's the miles, and now I can start setting small sub goals of like, hey, I'm going to work towards walking a half mile, now a mile, and again, I don't know the exact miles of the park, but like we build up to that thing. It's measurable. I have a number. If it is being better into the mirror match, right? I can play mirror matches. I can engage, whether that be with our friends or in local communities or our testing groups or other online platforms. We can measure those. We can track those. We can have an ability to engage in that and measure that goal. Because again, if we don't know if we're headed in the right direction, we're just doing things. So being able to measure it using journals are a great opportunity to write down what we're doing. If you're testing and you're working on a goal and you're not documenting what is happening, you're not documenting the errors you're making, you're not documenting the the successes, or even just the pure numbers of how many games you put in the mirror, and what is that win loss ratio, and what is in what circumstances have you won and what circumstances have you lost. There's no data, so everything has to be measurable. So make it a measurable goal. If it is the mirror, a great is I want to win 70% of my mirror matches, 60% of my mirror matches, 50% of my mirror matches, whatever that number is for you, right? Understanding that needs to be measurable. And what I encourage any person is always start conservative. We always can increase and modify goals as we go along, but starting conservative, like I want to win 50% of my mirror matches. That's half. That's not bad, right? And then once we get to that, we bump up to 60%, and so on. But also understanding that there comes a point where nothing's 100%. So the first in the SMART goals is specific. The next is measurable. After that is attainable, right? This idea that, is this something I can do realistically? Like, again, 100%. No one's going to win 100% of the mirror matches. This is not going to happen. If it's even walking around the park, the first example I used, if it's a rainy day or I get a rock in my shoe and I have to sit down, like that's realistic, right? We have to understand that there is variance inside of the community, the TCG community, and the world around us. So we also have to understand that in our goal setting. And I think a big part of this section, when we look at really like the attainable part, is like, what kind of goals are we aspiring for? Are they extrinsic goals? I want to win a golden Mickey, or intrinsic goals that are realistic to what's in my control, is, becoming better, maybe, like I said, in the mirror match, right? So a part of that goal setting is to understand, am I making really solid goals that are intrinsically motivated, right? They're in my control. They're not this outside thing I'm seeking, but things internal I'm seeking that I have power and control over. I don't have control who I sit across from and who I play and the cards we both draw, but I do have control over really being, inking the most optimal cards, or and playing the most optimal cards, and knowing the lines in the mirror match or in whatever particular matchup. That's where the goals need to lie, is where the intrinsic piece, the inside you piece, and not an external piece. So again, being better in the mirror can be, I want to play optimally in the mirror, which means I do X, Y, Z. Again, specific, measurable, and obtainable goal setting. And next is really like realistic for where we're at. I think sometimes we set these lofty goals, like I mentioned in the very beginning, is this idea of if I've started out losing 90%, so I win 10% of the mirror matches, and if I say, well, I want to win 90%, that's not really realistic inside of the grand scheme of everything. It's not really an obtainable goal that facilitates success. And again, if we have early failure, that usually devastates us in our goal setting. So again, making that a realistic bar in front of us. There's a thing called the half method, right? Half method is take your original goal, cut it in half, and that's a great place to start, right? If it's I think I can, we'll use the walking. I think I can start a mile, cut it in half, do a half mile, and start there. And if it's easy, then we can increase from there. If it's I want to increase 10% on my mirror matches, great, start at 5. And if you hit that bar, great, because what that's going to do is it's going to make us feel good, which is going to increase our desire and drive to keep participating in that goal. But also, it's realistic. It keeps the motivation going, and also if we hit that, maybe it's just 5% and I struggle there. Again, that tells me something where I can kind of relook at the goal, reshape the goal, and keep moving forward. And the last is time sensitive. It needs to have a deadline. It needs to have a place we're working towards, right? It can't be like, just get better at this with no measure, right? It needs to be, we'll use a Disney park walking around. I need to say, in the next 6 months, this is my goal, because maybe I'm going to Disney park. Maybe it's a tournament we've set, 3-4 months in the advance. I know it's a little hard with depending on what set's rotating in and out and what's being played and what's not being played, but overall we could set those small goals. Hey, I have a tournament in 3 months and I want to be really better, get better than me, and it's going to be the same meta. So like, I'm going to like, that's my benchmark, right? Time sensitive, time oriented, so I can work towards something. And again, in all of this, I want those goals to be these intrinsic things. Again, not necessarily things are outside of our control, things are inside of our control. And they need to be flexible, right? Life happens, right? So we can be flexible with the goals, we can, but also in a way that we still keep progressing forward. So I encourage everyone to set their 2026 goals. Use that SMART goal model. I mean, you can always look it up online. There's images there to kind of help you facilitate the sections of setting those goals. Make them specific, measurable, realistic, and time sensitive, and really work towards whatever goal you want to be, whether that be a goal of like walk around Disney or one of the TCG world, or even a social goal of like, hey, I've been to some locals, I want to make more friends, or I've been to a few DSCs, I want to expand my social circle. Those are all amazing goals. Again, making them specific. Again, those are the more general, but like making them specific and measurable. I encourage anyone to put their goal down in the comments below. Let me know what those goals are and how you plan on achieving those, and I'll see you all in the next one.